Hello, everybody, and welcome to chapter 41 of the book of Bereishit as we continue to travel through Tanach. Chapter 41 is a long chapter with 57 verses, and it starts in the Koren Sachs Chumash on page 270 and 271. This is a hugely important chapter because this is the turning point for Yosef's fortunes. He starts this chapter languishing in prison, and by the end of it, he is going to be the second most powerful person in the entire civilized world. The story in this chapter starts 2 years after the end of chapter 40, where Paro is troubled by two dreams: 7 healthy cows swallowed by 7 thin cows, and 7 full ears of grain swallowed by 7 thin ones. None of Egypt's wise men can interpret these dreams, and it's only then that the cupbearer remembers Yosef, who is rushed from prison to Pharaoh's court. Yosef makes one thing clear from the outset: the interpretation is not his own wisdom, but comes from Hashem. He explains that the dreams predict 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of devastating famine. And Yosef goes further. He offers practical advice. Egypt must appoint a wise leader to store food during the good years. Pharaoh recognizes Yosef's insight and integrity and appoints him second in command over all of Egypt, and gives him a new name, clothing, status, and an Egyptian wife. Yosef oversees the years of plenty, stores vast reserves, and when famine finally strikes, Egypt and the surrounding world turn to Yosef for survival. And by the end of the chapter, Yosef's fortune has truly been completely reversed. With that introduction in mind, let's turn to chapter 41, verse 1, which is also the beginning of Parshas Miketz. Vayihi Miketz shnasayim yamim. It happened at the end of 2 years to the day. And our rabbis point out that 2 years after the cupbearer and the baker had had their dreams was Rosh Hashanah. They had their dreams on Rosh Hashanah, and Pharaoh is having his dreams on Rosh Hashanah. So at the end of 2 years, Ufar Cholein, Pharaoh had a dream. V'hinei omed al hayor. He was standing by the river. Which river? The river Nile. Verse 2, V'hinei min hayor. When behold, from the river, olos sheva paros, yefos mare uvrios basar. Out of the river there emerged 7 cows, handsome and healthy cows. Vatirena ba'achu, and they were grazing in the marshland. Verse 3, V'hinei sheva paros acheros olos acharihen. Then 7 other cows emerged after them, min hayor, from the river, ra'os mare v'dakos basar, which were ugly and gaunt. V'tamodna etzel paros al sfas hayor, and they stood next to the cows on the bank of the river. Verse 4, V'tochalna haparos ra'os hamare v'dakos habasar. The ugly, gaunt cows ate up es sheva haparos yefos hamare v'habrios, ate up the 7 handsome, healthy cows. Vayikatz Paro, and Pharaoh woke up. Verse 5, Vayishon, and he fell back asleep. Vayachalom shenis, and he had a second dream. V'hinei sheva shibalim, he saw 7 ears of grain. Olos bekane echad, which were sprouting from one single stalk. Brios v'tovos, healthy and good. Verse 6, V'hinei sheva shibalim, and suddenly there were 7 other ears, dakos ushtovos kadim, which were thin and scorched by the east wind. Somchos acharehen, and they were growing after them. Verse 7, Vativlana hashibalim hadakos, the thin ears swallowed up, es sheva hashibalim habrios v'hamleos, the 7 ripe and full ears. Vayikatz Paro b'nei chalom, and Pharaoh awoke and realized it had been a dream. Verse 8, Vayihi vaboker, in the morning, Vatipaem rucho, his mind was troubled, his spirit was agitated. Vayishlach vayikra es kol chartumei Mitzrayim. So he sent for all the magicians of Egypt, ves kol chachameha, and all of the sages. Vayisaper Paro lahem es chalamo. And Paro told them his dream, vein posa osam lefaro. But no one could offer an interpretation to him. Verse 9, Vaydaber sar hamashkim es Paro lemor. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, Es chata'ai ani maskir hayom, I must recall my sins. Verse 10, Paro kotzaf alavadav. Once Pharaoh was angry with his servants. Vayiten osi b'mishmar beis sar hatabachim, and he placed me in the ward of the house of the captain of the guard, or as we said previously, the head butcher or the executioner. OC, there was me, ve'es sar ha'ofim, and the chief baker. Verse 11, V'nachalna chalom balayla echad ani vahu. One night, he and I each had a dream. Ish kafisron chalamo chalamnu. Each one according to the interpretation of his dream. Verse 12, V'shamitanim nar ivri, and there with us was a nar ivri, a young Hebrew, Eved, who was a slave, l'sar hatabachim, to the captain of the guard, or to the chief butcher, the chief executioner. V'nasaper lo v'yiftar lanu es chalamosenu, and we told him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. Ish kachalamo pasar. He interpreted for each in accordance with his dream. Verse 13, Vayhi kasher pasar lanu kein haya. Things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. Osi Heshiv al Kani, I was restored to my position, V'ososala, and he was hanged. Verse 14, Vayishlach Paro, Vayikra es Yosef. So Pharaoh sent and summoned Yosef, Vayiritzuhu min habor. He was rushed from the dungeon, from the pit, Vayigalach, and he was shaved, Vayachalef simlosav, and he changed his clothes, Vayavo el Paro, and he came to Paro. Verse 15, Vayomer Paro el Yosef. Paro said to Yosef, Chalom chalamti ufosa enoso. I had a dream and no one can interpret it. Va'ani shamati alecha lemor, tishma chalom liftoroso. And I've heard that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Verse 16, Vayan Yosef es Paro. Yosef answered to Pharaoh, lemor, saying, Biladai, not I, that is beyond me. Elohim ya'aneh es shalom Paro. It is Hashem who will give Pharaoh the answer that he needs. Verse 17, Vaydaber Paro el Yosef. Pharaoh told Yosef, B'chalomi, in my dream, Hineni omed al sfas hayor. I was standing by the bank of the Nile. Verse 18, V'hinei min hayor, from the river, Olos sheva paros, brios basar vifos Torah, emerged 7 handsome and healthy cows, Vatirena barachu, and they grazed among the marsh, among the reeds. Verse 19, V'hine, suddenly, Sheva paros acheros olos acharehen. 7 other cows emerged after them. Dalos, varaos, toar, ma'od, varakos basar. Scrawny, very sickly and thin. Lo ra'isi chahena, b'chol eretz Mitzrayim la roa. I never saw such sickly cows in all of Egypt. Vatochalna haparos harakos v'haraos. Then the thin, sickly cows ate up es sheva haparos harishonos habrios, the first 7 healthy cows. Verse 21, Vatavona el kirbena, velonada kivaru el kirbena. But when they had eaten them, you could not tell that they had eaten them. Umar ehen ra kasher batchila, for they still looked as bad as before. Vaikats, and then I woke up. Verse 22, Va'ere b'chalomi. And then I saw in my dream, V'hinei sheva shibalim, olos bekana echad, meleos v'tovos. I then saw 7 ears of grain, ripe and full, growing on a single stalk. Verse 23, V'hinei sheva shibalim, tsunmos dakos, shiduvos kadim. Suddenly 7 other ears sprouted after them, shriveled, thin, and scorched by the east wind. Tzomchos acharehen. They sprouted after them. Verse 24, Vativlana hashibalim hadakos. The thin ears swallowed up es sheva hashibalim hatovos, the 7 good ears. Va'omar el achartumim ve'ein magid li. I told this to the chartumim, to the magicians, to the sorcerers, but none could explain it to me. Verse 25, Vayomer Yosef el Paro. Yosef said to Pharaoh, Chalom Paro echadhu. Verse 25, Vayomer Yosef el Paro. Yosef said to Pharaoh, Chalom Paro echadhu. Pharaoh's dream is one dream. Es Hashem ha'Elohim oseh higid leFaro. What Hashem is about to do, he has told to Pharaoh. And one of the reasons why the magicians had been unable to interpret the dream is because they thought that there were 2 separate dreams. But actually the clues were there all along, that these 2 dreams are connected. It's one dream with one theme, which we're about to explain now. Verse 26, Sheva paros hatovos, Sheva shanim heina. The 7 good cows are 7 years. The Sheva hashibalim hatovos, Sheva shanim heina. And the 7 good ears are 7 years. Chalom echadhu. It is one dream. Verse 27, V'sheva haparos harakos, v'haraos, ha'olos acharehen, Sheva shanim heina. And the 7 thin, sickly cows that came up after them are 7 years. V'sheva hashibalim harikos shtufos hakadim. And the 7 empty ears scorched by the east wind, yihiyu sheva shnei ra'av. They are 7 years of famine. Verse 28, Hu hadavar asher dibarti el paro. It is as I have told Pharaoh, Asher ha'elohim oseh hera es paro. Hashem has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. Verse 29, Hine sheva shanim baos. 7 years are coming. Sava gadol b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. When there will be great abundance and satiation throughout the land of Egypt. Verse 30, V'kamu sheva shnei ra'av achareihem. But after them will come 7 years of famine. V'nishkach kol hasava be'eretz Mitzrayim. When all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten. V'chila hara'av es ha'aretz. And famine will ravage the land. Verse 31, V'lo yivada hasava ba'aretz. No one in the land will know anything of the abundance. Mipnei hara'av hahu achareichen. Because of the famine that will follow it. Ki chaved hu me'od. Because it will be so devastating. Verse 32, Va'al hishanos hachalom el paro pa'amayim. As for Pharaoh having the same dream twice, Ki nachon hadavar me'im ha'elohim, u'memaher ha'elohim la'asoso. This means that the matter has already been decided by Hashem, and he is going to bring it about very soon. Verse 33, V'ata yirei Pharaoh ish navon v'chacham. So now let Pharaoh seek out a discerning and wise man, V'shisehu al eretz Mitzrayim, and appoint him over the land of Egypt. Verse 34, Yaseh Pharaoh v'yafked p'kidim ala aretz. Let Pharaoh appoint overseers over the land. V'chimeshes eretz Mitzrayim b'sheva shnei hasava. And take 1/5 of Egypt's harvest during the 7 years of abundance. Yosef is really hoping that he is going to get appointed. So he first tries to plant the seed in Pharaoh's mind that he should appoint him as this grand overseer. And failing that, even if he doesn't get appointed as the head over everybody, at the very least, he'll hopefully be appointed as one of these officers that's going to oversee the land. Verse 35, Yikbetsu es kol ochel hashanim hatovos habaos ha'eleh. So here comes his economic policy. Let them gather all that food in these coming good years. V'yitzberu var tachas yad paro ochel be'arim v'shamaru. Storing the grain under Pharaoh's authority, so that there is food under guard in all the cities. Verse 36, V'haya ha'ochel lefikadon la'aretz. The food should be held in reserve for the land, l'sheva shnei hara'av, asher tihiyena be'eretz Mitzrayim. For when the 7 years of famine come to Egypt, v'lo sikaris ha'aretz bara'av, so that the country is not ruined by the famine. Verse 37, Vayitav hadavar ve'enei Pharaoh. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh, uve'enei kol avadav, and to all of his officials. Verse 38, Vayome Paro el avadav. So Pharaoh said to his officials, to his servants, Hanimtzach hazeh ish asher ruach Elohim bo. Could we find another like him, a man who has the Spirit of God within him? Verse 39, Vayome Paro el Yosef. And Pharaoh said to Yosef, Acharei hodia Elohim osacha es kol zos. Since Hashem has made all of this known to you, ein navon v'chacham kamacha. There can be no one so discerning and wise as you. And now for the big appointment. Verse 40, Ata tihiyeh el beisi. You shall be in charge of my palace, val picha yishat kolami. And by your command shall all my people be sustained. Rak hakisei egdal mimeka. Only by the throne shall I outrank you. Verse 41, Vayome Paro el Yosef. And Pharaoh said to Yosef, Re'ei nosati arsacha al kol eretz Mitzrayim. I hereby place you in charge of all the land of Egypt. Verse 42, Vayasa Paro es tabato me'al yado. Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand, Vayitan osa al yad Yosef, and placed it on Yosef's hand. Vayobesh oso bigdei sheish. He had him robed in garments of the finest linen, Vayasem revid hazahav al tzavaro, and placed a gold chain around his neck. Verse 43, Vayarkev oso b'mirkeves hamishneh asher lo. He had him ride in the chariot of his second in command, Vayikre'u lefanav, and ahead of him people proclaimed Avreich, V'nason oso akol eretz Mitzrayim. Thus he was given authority over all Egypt. Verse 44, Vayome Paro el Yosef. Pharaoh told Yosef, Ani Pharaoh, I am Pharaoh. Uviladecha lo yarim ish es yado ve'es raglo b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. But without your consent, no one will lift hand or foot in all of Egypt. Verse 45, Vayikra Pharaoh shen Yosef Tzafnas Paneach. Pharaoh gave Yosef the Egyptian name Tzafnas Paneach, Vayiten lo es Osnas bas Potiphera. and gave him Osnas, the daughter of Potiphar, Kohen On, the priest of On, Leisha, as a wife. Vayetze Yosef al Eretz Mitzrayim. So Yosef went out to oversee Egypt. And our deepest sources point out that Osnas is actually the daughter of Dinah from the time when she was violated by Shechem. And the story is told that this baby Osnas was given a special amulet from Yaakov, and she was then sent down to Mitzrayim, where she was taken in by Potiphar. And so as Yosef was being paraded through Mitzrayim to find him a suitable Egyptian wife, the story goes that all of these potential suitors were throwing their jewelry at Yosef's chariot, hoping to be chosen. And as Yosef is being paraded through the streets, he sees this amulet, this special amulet, different from all of the others. And the sources point out that it had Hebrew writing on. And Yosef sitting there and is thinking, what are the chances that I should find an amulet with Hebrew writing? And so when he finds out that this belongs to Osnas, this ends up being the woman that he marries. And so in a very, very divinely orchestrated set of events, Yosef ends up marrying this Egyptian girl who really is actually the daughter of Dinah. None of this is written explicitly in the text, but this is the rich tapestry that one can start to put together when exploring a lot of the commentaries and other sources. Verse 46, Vayosef ben Shloshim Shana ba'amdo lifnei Paro melech Mitzrayim. Yosef was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Vayetze Yosef milifnei Pharaoh. Yosef left Pharaoh's presence. Vayavor b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. And he traveled throughout the land of Egypt. Verse 47, Vatas haaretz b'sheva shnei hasava likmatzin. The earth produced, during the 7 years of plenty, the land produced in great abundance. Verse 48, Vayikbots es kol ochel sheva shanim. He gathered all the grain produced during the 7 years, asher hayu be'eretz Mitzrayim, that were in the land of Egypt, vayiten ochel be'arim, and he stored it in the cities. Ochel sedei ha'ir asher svivoseha nosam b'sochar. In each city he stored the grain grown in the surrounding fields. Verse 49, Vayitzbor Yosef bar kechol hayam habema'od. Yosef stored so much grain that it was like the sand of the sea. Ad ki chadal lispar ki ein mispar. They had to stop keeping records because it was beyond measure. Verse 50, Uli Yosef yulad shnei vanim b'terem tavosh nasarav. Yosef had 2 sons before the years of famine came, and our rabbis point out that this is because it would not have been appropriate for him to be having children during these years of suffering. Asher yolda lo Osnas bas Potiphera kohenon. They were born to Yosef by Osnas, the daughter of Potiphera, the priest, the Kohen of On. Verse 51, Vayikra Yosef es Shem HaBachor Menashe. Yosef named his firstborn Menashe, Ki nashani Elohim es kol amali es kol beis avi. For Hashem has made me forget all my troubles and all my father's family. Verse 52, Ves Shem Hasheni kara Ephraim. And the name of the second son he called Ephraim, Ki Hefrani Elohim be'eretz anyi. For Hashem has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Verse 53, Vatichlena sheva shnei hasava. The 7 years of abundance came to an end, Asher haya be'eretz Mitzrayim, that were in the land of Egypt. Verse 54, Vatchilena sheva shnei hara'av. The 7 years of famine began. Lavo kasher omar Yosef. Verse 54, Vatchilena sheva shnei harav lavo. The 7 years of famine began. Kasher omar Yosef, just like Yosef said. Vayhi ra'av b'chol haratzos. There was famine in all the lands. V'chol eretz Mitzrayim haya lachem. But throughout Egypt, there was food. Verse 55, Vatirav kol eretz Mitzrayim. When Egypt began to feel the famine, Vayitzak ha'am el paro lalachem. The people cried out to Pharaoh for food. Vayomer paro lachol Mitzrayim, and Pharaoh told all of Egypt, L'chu el Yosef, asher yomar lachem ta'asu. Go to Yosef, whatever he tells you, you should do. Verse 56, Va'arav haya al kol panei ha'aretz. The famine spread over the entire country. Vayiftach Yosef es kol asher bahem vayishpor lo Mitzrayim. Yosef then opened all the storehouses and sold the grain to the Egyptians by Chezak harav be'eretz Mitzrayim. For the famine was worsening throughout Egypt. And finally, verse 57, "V'chol haaretz ba'u Mitzrayma." People from all lands came to Mitzrayim, came to Egypt, lishbor el Yosef, to buy grain from Yosef, ki chazak hara'av b'chol haaretz. Because all across the land, the famine was devastating. And that brings us to the end of chapter 41, and it sets us up for chapter 42, where even Yaakov is feeling the famine, and so he is going to have to send his sons down to Mitzrayim, which will set into motion a series of events which will eventually lead to the brothers and Yosef reuniting once again. I look forward to learning chapter 42 with you. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.